Hey, my name is Danny Thompson. This is Miles to Go, and in today's video, I'm going to show you everything I bring on a moto camp trip, and maybe also just give you a couple tips or a couple things that I think about when I'm packing for a moto camp trip. And let's just jump right into it. So when I'm getting ready to leave, one of the things that I do is I lay out my tent footprint, and then I lay my things out on there. So I do have my footprint folded up right here. And I lay these first things out in this order. I go shelter, sleep, and sit. And I've started laying these things out this way to make sure I don't forget anything, because I certainly have forgotten stuff. And, you know, it's annoying to be 200 miles away from home and forget something important. So have my tent footprint, as I mentioned here. And then I use the Kelty Dirt Motel 2. Now, you can definitely get tents that pack lighter than this and smaller. I could probably actually get this quite a bit smaller if I took a little bit more time in the packing process. But this is an awesome two-person tent. I'm not going to do any kind of full reviews here today, just give you some generalities, and I will also have links below for most of these things. So Kelty Dirt Motel 2, awesome tent for moto camping. All right, over to sleep. This is the Teton Leaf 20 degree from Teton Sports. Pretty decent sleeping bag. I tend to not do like really cold weather stuff, but I slept in this and it was down maybe about 35 degrees and I was totally fine. It is kind of a mummy bag, and I'm a side sleeper. I don't really like being enclosed like that. So I'm going to move away from this here in the near future to maybe more of like a bivy quilt type of setup. And I've got a couple other ideas here for my sleep system because I'm a terrible tent sleeper. So, but that's a sleeping bag. This is the Nemo Philo. This is a really nice camp pillow. It folds down really small. You do fill it with air, but it has an outer cushion that is much more of a foam. So it doesn't really feel like you're just laying on that, you know, air pillow, which is super uncomfortable. This is the King Camp cot, and I moved over to a cot. Again, I'm a side sleeper. I hate sleeping on the ground. I do really bad with sleeping pads. So I tried the cot here, and this is a fairly inexpensive cot. You can spend a few $100 and get something super lightweight, packs smaller. This is about $90 on Amazon, and it is better. It gets you about this far off the ground. Definitely much better if you're sleeping on your side a little bit. It's not amazing, but definitely for me, better than a sleeping pad on the ground. Then lastly, in the shelter, sleep, and sit category is a chair. You always want to have some type of flexible, easy to use camp chair. And this is just a REI camp chair, the Flex Lite. Pretty inexpensive. These work excellent. All right, so this next section here is pretty much cooking, food related. So I love the Firebox stove. My brother got me this for Christmas last year. This thing is amazing. So check out the Firebox stove YouTube channel. They do a bunch of great videos on all kinds of crazy stuff that you can cook with this thing. It's really fun. But along with that, I always bring a Jetboil and extra canister, and then a couple of little attachments that go along with the Jetboil, so I can do like, you know, a frying pan type of setup on top of there. So you want to think about what you're going to cook and how you're going to cook. Now, something that I've also been doing more recently, and I think it's something to think about right now, is I always bring a soft cooler like this. I might throw a couple of Coke Zeros in there, but what I also always put in here is a sandwich, or I might go to like Jersey Mike's or something and get a cold sub, put it in there, put a little cold pack in there. Because I have had a recent camping trip where the forest rangers came by, said 0 flames whatsoever due to fire danger. And, you know, if you're out west and you're moto camping, that could really become a reality more and more often. So I was kind of stuck that day and ended up having to eat, you know, a Cliff Bar, a Power Bar for dinner. So having that extra cold sandwich, or even just, you know, a couple peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or something, just because you never know what's going to happen out there. So you know, a soft little cooler like this is real nice. You can squish it down, doesn't take up a lot of room in your bag. So along with that, I always have lighter. I have a carbide fire starter. I have just kind of a basic folding chef's knife. So obviously I reserve this for cutting food. I'm not, you know, hacking at wood or anything like that. I do have my Bear Grylls survival knife that I always bring, and this is kind of my camp knife. I've split wood with that. And then I have a basic saw for cutting wood if I'm in a place that allows me to do that. And that's always another thing to sort of think about with your setup. There's times where I'm actually taking firewood with me because I know that where I'm going, can't really cut anything down, or in some places you can't even pick up loose scrap wood off the ground to use in a fire. So that's something you want to think about if you really want to have a fire, and most of the time we all do. And you know, I'll bring some various drinking mugs or something like that. This here is the Sea to Summit little setup that comes with an expandable cup, which works great, and a little dish that you could heat up something in, things like that. So you want to have a few options, and you would really be surprised at how much you can cook up with a setup like this. Now, one other thing is, even if I don't plan on just using the jet boil to fire up a, you know, a simple camping meal, a freeze-dried one, I think it's always a good idea to have one of those in your bag, just in case. Again, you might get to a situation where you're okay using a propane flame, but you can't have a campfire or like an open flame that you would use in the firebox grill. So it's nice to have those couple of options so you're not, you know, sitting around camp, got no campfire going, you got no food to eat. It's gonna get pretty uncomfortable and kind of boring. A couple other little things. I always bring my pour over coffee. I did a video about the best camp coffee, so I'll put a link in there so you can check this out, but great way to make coffee in the morning. And some power bars and things like that. But here's something I think a lot of people don't think about, and I always bring a couple of these little hydrant packages. There's lots of companies out there that do something like this. This is like an electrolyte drink. So if you're, you know, gonna be riding in high temperatures, which again, out here in the West in California, if you're doing stuff in the summer, you can easily be, you know, running the risk of overheating and dehydrating. So even if you're drinking tons of water, you are losing certain electrolytes and some salt content, sodium content that your water isn't replenishing. So throwing one of these into a water bottle with your water or in your hydration pack is a great thing to think about in that kind of temperature. Can really make a big difference. All right, these are some general comfort, convenience type things. I forgot to kind of mention with the cooking stuff, I always bring some type of fire starter supplement and a regular lighter, wine bottle opener that just stays in my bag, and I always have a flask with maybe some whiskey or something like that. So that goes along with the cooking stuff. Now, just some other general stuff. Obviously, you want lighting, so a good headlamp is great. And then a nice little USB camp light like this that can fold open. These work really great, super cheap, super light, and they fold up nice and small. So sometimes it's nice to have that like hanging in your tent, or you can bring it out to the table or out to your little campsite. It's really nice to have. Citronella candle. These you can get on Amazon. These Coleman ones come in different scents, and it's really nice. It gives a little extra ambiance and helps keep the bugs away. Don't forget your bug spray. Don't forget your sunscreen if you're in a spot that you might need that. Now, this here I just got, and I haven't used it yet, but this is a Thermacell mosquito repellent, and it's a little unit, probably about this big, about the size of this pack here, that emits a certain type of oil and is supposed to create kind of a perimeter around you of about 15 or 20 feet to keep the mosquitoes away. So I'm excited to get out and try this. Mosquitoes aren't a big issue in California camping, but they can definitely be out there at night depending on where you are. And you know, if you're in a spot that has a lot of bugs, that can really make your camp uncomfortable. So I'm really stoked to try this unit out. This here is a pack safe. It's folded up right now, but this is a great way to secure your bags if you're leaving your motorcycle for a while. So this is, more stays on the motorcycle as opposed to something that I have set up at camp, but it's great to bring. Now, always want to bring kind of a basic toiletry setup, some emergency toilet paper. Hand sanitizer is a great thing to have. It's just some little, things like that, just for an emergency. This water bottle here with the black tape on there reminds you that you should never drink from this water bottle. This is the emergency, not emergency, but this is the middle of the night. I don't feel like getting up and putting shoes on to go outside my tent to go take a pee. And it might seem kind of gross, but if you've toured in a band as long as I have, this is nothing. So I always bring the safety bottle. Now, something I always bring with me is a spot emergency locator. I can take this mountain biking, flying, anything that I'm doing. This is a great piece of gear to have as just an extra safety measure. Much of the time in any kind of national park, you won't get cell service. And, when you're out in the middle of BLM land or something, you're probably not going to have cell service. If you have an emergency and you're traveling alone, which most of the time I prefer to be alone, I feel good having this unit. So this is a great piece of gear to have. Some other comfort things, I always bring a pair of camp shoes. So as soon as I get to camp, I can take the boots off. And these are just like some simple, these are kind of like beach sort of water shoes that I got in Hawaii. I love these things, but just slip them on over your bare feet. Great for walking around the camp. Easy to get on and off and just much cooler and makes your feet feel nice to get out of those boots and take your socks off and things like that. I will also use just some these little separation kind of packing bags to maybe put my clothes in here. And it's just kind of a way to help keep things organized. Now, always have some various electronic items with me. And I have 2 different power banks. This Anchor unit really does well on a full charge. You can charge up your phone a couple times, GoPro batteries and things like that. And then I also have this solar powered bank as another backup if I need that. So something I started doing a few years ago as well, out on tour, I started doing this on the bus, is using this little organizer that has a place to kind of keep all your cabling and things that you need for different chargers and stuff. And it's just nice to kind of have that organized so you're not just digging through a bag and pulling out cables and things like this. Now, something that's really important for me is to have some entertainment. So of course, I bring music with me, and download your music to your phone. Don't rely on streaming, because you'll end up like me on your first moto trip and realize you couldn't stream any Netflix or listen to music, and you're sitting in the dark in your tent by yourself. And it does get boring sometimes. So some people like to read. I'll do a little bit of that. But as much as I like getting away and I love camping, I also have this feeling where I want this certain creature comfort from home. And for me, that comfort is to watch movies or TV shows. So I just bring this really cheap Amazon tablet, Fire tablet. They make a bunch of different versions of it, but this was maybe $50 when I bought it a few years ago. I don't use it for anything else other than I download a ton of movies and TV shows on here. If you do it at the data saver quality level, you can get a ton of programming on here. And I've used this on a lot of long distance flights and things like that because, your laptop, the battery runs out really quickly, and it's also, you got to carry your expensive laptop with you. Same thing with an iPad. I'm always worried about traveling with it and having something happen to it, especially on a moto trip. So this works great. If this thing gets smashed, no big deal. But it's great. Sit around the campfire, having a cocktail, and watching a TV show or a movie. It's really important to me. So again, it is something to think about if you're going to be out there by yourself. Last couple things to think about. Quite often I will ride with my mountain bike hydration pack with the bladder inside of it. Again, when it's really hot, it's so great to be able to drink while you're riding and not have to pull over every so often. And, again, maybe put some of that electrolyte mix in this as you're riding and drink that and stay nice and hydrated. The other thing I might use is sometimes I will ride with a full backpack, and I can take my hydration bladder and put it inside this backpack. I got this from Cycle Gear. Now, riding with a backpack, it's not the most comfortable thing. And for most all of this gear, I can do this full camp setup just with the bags that are on my bike, which is a Wolfman dry duffel bag on the back, kind of the large size. And I have two just 20-liter saddlebags. Now I want to get some bigger saddlebags. That's going to make it much easier for me to carry everything. But where I run into a little bit of a problem, again, is if I'm going to bring some firewood with me. Because I'm riding by myself, I always, I have to struggle with that. Do I drop some stuff off at the campsite and then maybe ride back out somewhere to buy firewood? It's not, unless it's going to be a really short ride, which means I'm not really very far from a town. I really don't feel comfortable doing that, or I might just not have time or be too tired after the long day. So sometimes I'll fit a decent amount of firewood in that Wolfman bag, and then to get the last little bit of my gear, I need to ride with a backpack. And I've done, 5-6 hours with the backpack on. It's not amazing, but you can do it. The reason I probably really have to do that, though, is that I'm carrying camera gear, drone, a couple of GoPros, all the batteries and stuff, and that does take up a decent amount of space. So that's a consideration, too. If you're not bringing cameras to film everything, you're going to have a lot more space. So those are a few things to think about. Always bring more water than you think you're going to need. You get out there, the worst feeling in the world for me is to feel like I have to ration water in any way. I don't have it shown here, but you should always probably bring some type of water filtration. Very simple setup. There's a bunch of great ones out there. Bring something like that with you, so in an emergency you could filter some water if you need to, but I prefer to not have to do that. So I always bring a ton of water, and you have to account for the space that water is going to take as well. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. We'll see you.